Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
Grant Robertson.
Speaker, there was some controversy earlier in the local government bill process about what was and what wasn't in if the four well-beings were out. What could local government do? And John Key was asked a number of questions about it, and he said that the Hamilton V8s were out. That wasn't good enough. That was out. But, surprisingly, Mr Speaker, he said the Ellerslie Flower Show was in. And we can now reveal Maggie Barry finally has an achievement in politics. The Ellerslie Flower Show was in because Maggie Barry lobbied for it. That was it. The career is complete because that is the greatest contribution, Mr Speaker, that we will get from Maggie Barry in this debate. Mr Speaker, from time to time in this House, National Party members bellow across to us about that we're the party of big government, that we're the party that wants everything to happen in Wellington. This is what happens. Maggie Barry occasionally raises that issue, that it's big government on this side of the House. Well, all I've seen, Mr Speaker, from the National Party when it comes to looking at local government is their desire to take control away from local communities and drag it back to them here in Wellington. As Phil Twyford said, every year since we have been MPs in this House, this national government has said we're going to take power off local communities, drag it back into Wellington and be big government over there. And no better example of that, Mr Speaker, than the cancelling of the elections for the Canterbury Regional Council for Environment Canterbury, and then to come back and extend that out to say that the people of Canterbury will have no say over their representation at a regional council level until at least 2016. Mr Speaker, that went against the advice of officials, it went against the advice of the commissioners themselves, and it went against the will and interest of the Canterbury people. But that's the kind of big government that this party over here thinks is the right thing to do, to centralise that power, take it off local government. We saw it with Auckland, we've seen it with Canterbury, and now, Mr Speaker, in this bill we see it again. And let's be absolutely clear, if we want one specific example, if this government actually believes that local residents should have a say over their own communities, how is it right to take away the right to an automatic referendum where there is amalgamation? Because that's what this bill does, Mr Speaker. It says the national government knows best. The national government knows best, and local people do not have a right to an automatic referendum if there is to be an amalgamation. That is taking away democratic rights. That is the pattern of this government, and that is what this bill does. Mr Speaker, other colleagues have talked about the importance of the four well-beings, and I just want to highlight some of the activity of local government that this government could take a look at. The Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. The work that the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs has done over a number of years has done far more for the growth in employment, far more for opportunities for young people than any of those members over there will ever be able to claim credit for. Mayors like Dale Williams have actually got in their communities. Brian Cadogan down in Clutha District, these people are what I think I would say are soft Tories. That's a nice term, it's a term of endearment. Local government has a lot of people who are supporters of the National Party in it, and this government comes to this House today with this tawdry bill to trash those people. Those people like Dale Williams, like Brian Cadogan, who have done the work to get people in their communities into jobs, to get young people into training, and yet this government says, we're better at that. We're better at that. That's not what local government should do. Well, actually, they're not. 7.3% of this country's workers are unemployed. 175,000 people out of work looking for jobs. This government's got no idea how to make sure that there's employment growth, yet they come to this House with a bill that says we're going to take away the four well-beings. We don't think local government should be responsible for economic, social, cultural and environmental well-beings. That is shameful, Mr Speaker, and most of the submitters to this bill came to the House and said, what are you doing removing those four well-beings? What are you doing taking away from councils the ability to deliver to their communities the services that their communities want? No, the National Party knows best. The National Party era of Wellington-based big government is alive and well as they take away the rights of New Zealanders at the local level. Mr Speaker, it's been said by other speakers in this debate before, this bill's based on a lie. This bill's based on a lie. And my colleague Annette King saw that because she saw that the statistics that Nick Smith put up alongside his better local government paper were wrong. They were shonky. They were not accurate. And all of a sudden they disappeared. And Annette King wrote to David Carter and said, what's going on here? And David Carter wrote back to Annette King, and this is what he said to her. You note that the department has removed the tables from its website. As noted on the website, this was because there were issues with the data. Issues with the data, both in terms of its accuracy and in terms of the picture that was given for some councils. I'll translate for the members. The issues with the data were, it was wrong. It was a lie. It was wrong. And that is the fundamental basis for this bill, Mr Speaker, perpetuating a lie about what local government has been doing. So not only does this bill take away from local communities the ability to decide what they will do, it is fundamentally based on a lie. It is fundamentally based on undermining the ability of local communities to decide what they do. But Mr Speaker, I want to return to the question of amalgamations and the role of local communities and what happens in amalgamations. Because in the community I live in Wellington, there is enthusiasm in some quarters to create some kind of larger super city type structure. That debate is worthy of having. But what is wrong is that when the Local Government Commission, under the provisions of this bill, decides on some kind of amalgamation process, the people of this region will have 40 working days to try to get 48,000 signatures to actually have a referendum on a proposal, to actually have the right to have a say. That is an unacceptable limit on the rights of local people to decide how they are governed. And there is not much more fundamental in our community than local people being able to decide how they govern their communities. And once again, this party comes to this House, the National Party, and says, we know better than local communities. We will control how those amalgamations take place. And the notion that there will not be forced amalgamations, a commitment made by John Key, is thoroughly undermined by the provisions of this bill. The agenda for local government that has been driven by the National Party is one of greater central control, and I do believe they are looking towards forced amalgamations. Mr Speaker, throughout the community, people have looked at this bill and said it is wrong. It is not just the mayors, as some of the members opposite would say. It is local communities who know and respect their councils. But it's also fair-minded people who look at this and say, how is this fair? Christine Chain, who said that this would be an ad hoc and fragmented arrangement. Rod Oram, writing in the Sunday Star Times, saying it was wrong-headed, illogical and based on gross distortions of the truth and a handful of egregious examples. That's the basis for making law that will define how local communities are organised and governed in the future in New Zealand, on the basis of illogical, wrong-headed arguments and gross distortions of the truth. This bill, Mr Speaker, is disrespectful to this Parliament. It is disrespectful to the people and communities of New Zealand. It takes an approach that is arrogant, that is undemocratic, and that gives a lie to a belief that New Zealanders would have that they have control over how they are represented. This government is showing no respect for democracy at a local level throughout New Zealand. They are the party of big government and control when it comes to how New Zealanders are governed at a local level. This is a shameful bill, Mr Speaker, and it should not pass.
Mr Speaker,
Simon O'Connor.
It should pass, and it is certainly not a shameful piece.